I think it's time to do something a little bit different here in the Beginner's Bar. For this episode, we're going to talk about assorted whiskey cocktails. Welcome back, and today, in case the opening ran over your head, I'm going to talk to you about what I feel are 5 of the most essential cocktails using whiskey for any beginning bartender. Now, I'm not going to go into a history of whiskey or like the types of whiskey. That's in the future. But whiskey is not just what you may see from, say, Hollywood, or what you may see from your father. There's various types of whiskeys. You've heard of Scotch, you might have heard of Irish whiskey, rye, bourbon. So I'm not going to go into different types, but I feel that these 5 cocktails that I will show you are the quintessential cocktails for any whiskey lover. So, with that, what whiskey do I recommend? Honestly, any whiskey that you like, use. So if it is something that is lower in price, such as Evan Williams Bottled and Bond, which I utilized when I did my old-fashioned price to taste ratio, or if you want to go something higher end, by all means. Do I recommend going to the high end for making cocktails? Not really. So, with that in mind, what am I using? Well, for bourbon, I'm using Buffalo Trace. And for the rye, I'm using Rittenhouse. These are 2 fairly easy to find whiskeys. Rittenhouse a lot more than Buffalo Trace. If you want to substitute for Buffalo Trace, go with anything that you want. Old Forester, Four Roses, Evan Williams, completely up to you. I'm using these 2. And the final cocktail I'm going to talk, the final one I'm going to talk about before I make the final one will utilize Scotch, specifically Johnny Walker Black. Reason being is that it's not too peated, but it will still give the Scotch characteristics that are requested for the final cocktail. That being said, let's get started. Let me put these away. The first cocktail everyone's heard of, everyone knows, everyone has their own variations, and that is the Old Fashioned. Now, I talked about the Genever cocktail a couple months ago actually, and how that was the beginning of the cocktail revolution, However, the Old Fashioned came into vogue mainly in the probably still in the 1850s, but very much into the 1870s and 1880s, with bartenders being very liberal in how they create their own whiskey cocktail. You had bar patrons that were like, I'm tired of all the nonsense, I'm tired of all the fancy syrups and all that. I just want things the old style way, no syrups, no nothing. So the Old Fashioned came into vogue. The Old Fashioned, how I made it way back when I first began, was with a sugar cube, add bitters, 2 ounces of whiskey, off you go. That was the very first episode. Nowadays, my tastes have changed. Before I continue, allow me to state every bar program is different. Every bartender is different because of how they were trained. So just because I'm stating how I make it does not mean it's correct. It's just how I make it. It may be different than how another bartender makes it, or another cocktail, or how another content creator makes it. It's completely up to them. This is how I do it. For me to create my Old Fashioned, I go with a 1/4 ounce of simple syrup. My simple syrup is a 2-part sugar to 1-part water ratio by weight. From there, I add 2 dashes of Angostura bitters with the dash darts that I currently utilize over here. It's actually 3 dashes because the dash dart does thin out the dash a little bit. And then 2 ounces of bourbon. Put a big rock into the glass and give it a stir. How long do you stir? I go 10, 15 seconds, completely up to you. Garnish with a thin peel of orange, express the oils, dump right in. Off you go, you have the first whiskey cocktail, or the one that everyone knows, the old-fashioned. The next cocktail on this list is a true classic as well. I did this a while ago, and I slightly messed up when I did create it, but it's the whiskey sour. The whiskey sour is varied in how it's created. Some will say don't use a egg white. Others say do. Me, I'm in the place where if I'm making a whiskey sour, I do with an egg white. So how do I create it? Well, I take a lemon, I slice it in half, and then I go with 3/4 of an ounce of lemon juice. Then 3/4 of an ounce of the simple syrup that I use. Again, 2 parts sugar, 1 part water. Followed by 2 ounces of rye. You can do bourbon. Rye is the call though, so just be careful. From there, you will take an egg white. Crack an egg. Make sure you separate the yolk from the white, and I recommend that you put this in the large tin of a shaker, okay? That way, if you mess up and get some yolk in there, you can dump it and you can restart with that egg white. Everything else is taken care of. Once that's done, then you put the rest of the cocktail in from the small tin. You do a dry shake. This emulsifies the egg, slightly cooks the egg because of the alcohol. If your eggs are not fresh, be careful, as always with a egg white whiskey sour. Once you finish that dry shake, separate the tins, pour the already dry shaken cocktail back to the small tin. Grab your ice, place it in, then do your regular shake. Begin slow to let the cold really grab the tins and compress them to create the seal. Then once you are satisfied, give it all you got. Go for 10-15 seconds on a nice, hard, rough shake. Take a large coupe, such as one that will hold anywhere from 5 to 6 ounces. I would say maybe even up to 7 ounces. Place the hawthorn in after you break the tins and dump and strain through. Make sure you go really aggressive on the strain so that you get the egg white out. Let the egg white rise to create the nice foamy top, and then you garnish with bitters. Angostura is perfect. I personally prefer to use Peychaud's bitters. I find that the anise flavor in Peychaud's really goes well with a whiskey sour. From there, enjoy the velvety texture, the lemon, the sour part of that whiskey sour to really go through. If you don't want to utilize the egg white in the whiskey sour, then you could just make it without the egg white, shake it, and place into a rocks glass over ice. Garnish with maybe a lemon, maybe a wheel of lemon and a cherry. Completely up to you. The next one that I'm going to talk about is from Milk and Honey, and it's called the Gold Rush. The Gold Rush is a variant on the whiskey sour because it does utilize lemon juice and whiskey. But instead of utilizing simple syrup, it utilizes honey syrup, which for me, my honey syrup is 3 parts honey, 1 part hot water by volume, stirred up to make the honey more pourable and mixable in a cocktail. So, with that stated, in a shaker, this is a shaken cocktail, you're going to want to have 3/4 of an ounce of lemon juice, freshly squeezed if at all possible, 3/4 of an ounce of honey syrup. Again, if you want to go 2 to 1, 1 to 1, 3 to 1, like I do, by all means, 2 ounces of bourbon. Then shake over ice. Once all that's done, place a rocks glass with a big rock, strain right on top. Enjoy, it is delicious. The final one I'm going to talk about is the Blood and Sand. The Blood and Sand was created for the 1922 film Blood and Sand, starring Rudolph Valentino, also known as the Latin Lover. This cocktail is very reminiscent of a corpse reviver or also a last word. Those are not part of this, but if you want an idea, that's where this comes from. It utilizes Scotch as well as cherry hearing, which is a cherry-based liqueur. How it's created, it's all equal parts. It will need 3/4 of an ounce of orange juice, 3/4 of an ounce of sweet vermouth, 3/4 of an ounce of cherry hearing liqueur, and 3/4 of an ounce of Scotch. Shake that all in the shaker and serve in a Nick and Nora small coupe, what have you. Something that can hold 4 to 5 ounces would be appropriate. And now for the final one. The final one is the Sazerac. The Sazerac is a bit of a misconstrued thought. The idea is that the Sazerac originated from New Orleans. That's slightly true, but also not as true. The Sazerac is nothing more than a variation on the improved whiskey cocktail. Typically an improved whiskey cocktail would skew the sugar cube for something like orange liqueur or absinthe to really help bring out more sweetness. This does not fully do that. It still utilizes sugar in its own way. So this is one of my favorite whiskey cocktails, so let's make it. It is a stirred cocktail. And it being a stirred cocktail, grab a mixing glass. You could also use a pint glass. I need my simple syrup. I'm going to go with a bar spoon of simple syrup. I need Peychaud's bitters. Again, this is a dash dart. It will thin it out. I'm going to go with 3 dashes off the dash dart, 2 dashes with not the dash dart, with the normal woozy bottle top. And the Sazerac is made with rye, so 2 ounces of rye whiskey. Add ice in order to help begin the chill process. Because this is not going to be served over ice, this will be served neat. Bar spoon in. Give this thing a stir. How long do you stir? I'm going to go until it's cold. How cold? When I feel it's cold enough. Outstanding. Now I'm going to let that sit, and I'm going to grab a rocks glass. Because now comes a very interesting part of this. I need to rinse my glass with absinthe. Just a little bit. Don't need a lot. That'll work. That might be too much. You just want to bring it around and let it coat. Another way to do this would be with an atomizer to make it into a mist form, but you're going to want to be careful about it because absinthe is expensive. Now that's there. I'm going to take julep strainer, strain on down. The garnish for this would be a lemon twist. I don't have any lemons left on me, at least no whole lemons to make a twist, so I do apologize. But we have a Sazerac. The rye, the syrup, the Peychaud's, the absinthe helping sweeten. It's delicious. And with that, I've shown you 5 delicious cocktails utilizing the power of whiskey for bourbon, rye, and Scotch. One honorable mention that I will give is of my own volition, and that is the Texas Sunset, which is honey syrup, Peychaud's bitters, and bullet bourbon, made just like an old-fashioned. I find it's absolutely delicious. Another one that, especially for though we've just finished summer and going into fall, the strawberry bourbon iced tea, which utilizes strawberry syrup. I actually did it a while ago. It utilizes strawberry syrup plus bourbon and then topped with unsweetened tea. It is absolutely delicious. If you like the video, then please hit the like button, comment, subscribe, and share the video, please. If you want to use any of the barware I use on my show, by the way, check the links down below. There is a link to kit.co, which that houses everything I use under the sun. They're Amazon affiliate links, which you know that means. I'm not going to tell it for you. Find all my socials down in the description below as well. Until next time, thank you for watching. I will be back real soon with another cocktail. This has been The Beginner's Bar.